Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard is regarded as the most all-time popular film noir. The movie is about a failing cynical screenwriter, and on another hand, a decaying has-been actress. Both of them are escaping from the truth and the reality of the situation they're in. They do so by deluding themselves by utilizing their narcissistic traits and their self-morbid. Both characters want to get back into their businesses, but their problems are that they have to face the harsh industry of Hollywood, hence described by film writer Richard Corliss as, quote, a definitive Hollywood horror movie. However, for today's video essay, I would like to focus on the opening and the closing sequence of Sunset Boulevard to explore how they orchestrated tragedy, and by that, we are going to delve down onto the question, why tragic story stick with us? Tragedy is a precious word. We use it to confer agony. Tragedy claims that death is exceptional. In the opening sequence of Sunset Boulevard, we see the protagonist presumably dead as his body floats ecstatic in the swimming pool, and throughout the movie, we see how he ended up in the swimming pool in the first place. However, we still hear the protagonist's voice that narrates us as an omnipresent narrator. By this, we know that his fate has already been sealed, and the only thing that he could do is to pass on the tragic tale of his fate.
2 a week. Only I seem to have lost my touch. Maybe they weren't original enough.
I became concerned why those nonlinear stories are so apparent in the stylistic approach of film noir, like Double Indemnity, Hour of the Past, and why for most of the time, the ending has to result in the protagonist being defeated or being dead. To answer this question, we have to look extensively into the past examples of tragic tales and try to form connections with them. The first example that I would like to present is a classical tragedy, Shakespeare's household story of Romeo and Juliet. The moment that those two young lovers first met isn't a moment of fulfillment for the audience, but rather one of the most tragic moments in literature, because judging from how prominent the play is, it's presumably that everyone already has the pretext of how the story of these two ambitious lovers would end up in tragedy caused by their family's never-ending bloody feud. Another famous line in classical tragedy play Macbeth, where Lady Macbeth stated, "What's done is done and couldn't be undone," as the narrating voice of the protagonist in Sunset Boulevard conveys that he is not remorseful, angered, or even saddened by his unexpected death, but rather looking back on how things could have been done differently. If he were to choose his integrity over the financial security or the pool that Norma Desmond provides, things would have turned out differently in the end, thus creating the fated-to-be-doomed protagonist and give the audience the sense of glooming tragedy. This all ties in together. A study claims that classical tragedy and postmodern tragedy connotes a different meaning, where we see the postmodern tragedy everywhere, like news about car collisions, horrible accidents, or untimely death of a person. Unlike the use of the word tragedy in the classical era, where it connotes a work of literature or play. To put it simply, the word tragedy has developed and weaved itself into real-life applications. And the cinema of film noir is a very good example of this. Originated and prominent in the America's post-Second World War period, where men who went to war saw all of the horror of what the reality of war could offer. It was a time where black and white were blurred, and everything was grayed out. Therefore, a quote from this book, "The endings of tragedies call much into question, not least the matter of who and what is rightly to be judged good and bad. Death is promiscuous in tragedy. It engulfs the good, the bad, and the indifferent without regard to their moral qualities." Tragedy is tragic, and personally, the mainstream cinema have always played around the idea of escapism, providing the audience a window into another world that makes us laugh, cry, and give us sense of fulfillment. But by presenting the world that involves complex problems that doesn't always resolve itself in a happy fashion, it reminds us of the reality we live in and the one we try to escape from it in the first place. Stories that involve pain and tragic endings are the kind of stories that stick with us because it doesn't provide us escape, but instead it draws us in and resonates with us. In short, it feeds our contempt for the reality of pain.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?